So you mentioned, Seth, about what UNC has to do better in order to be successful in this game. What does Duke have to do better against UNC than they have been doing in the last few games?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. I'm doing something on game day tomorrow. And I'm talking about like the most memorable moments in the Duke Carolina, rivalry. And we are in Durham, and I'm a little kind of, well, should I say like they handed Coach K his last two losses. His last game that he's played and his last home game in Cameron. I'm not sure that'll go over real well. So I might couch that a little bit, but look, here's the biggest thing with Duke. If you had a grade Duke, because I know you guys like to look at things that way. I don't look at it. I look at the season as a journey and not a destination, especially with a young team. But I'd give them an incomplete because let's face it, they have not had their team together. They started the season. That's not an excuse. That's a reality. And for anyone that says, well, coach is trying to use this excuse, John's doing a terrific job. But here's the deal. You start your season, you get Proctor in late. You have two key components, miss the first 6 weeks of practice, the most important weeks of practice. I'm just telling you, the 6 weeks that you're putting in your concepts and offensively and defensively, and then have to bring those guys back and immerse them in what you're doing. They're 6 weeks behind in what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're doing it. And then all of a sudden, Jerry Moroch goes out. So that all of a sudden changes your substitution patterns, your roles, your identity in a lot of ways, because he's the one dude that understands what Duke is all about, one that understands the standard and the expectation. And then Whitehead goes out. So like they literally have an incomplete grade right now. And like, how do you evaluate him? I think John's done a great job because he's focused on the team and not the result. He's focused on the process, and it takes time. And that's why I say, and I tell all young coaches, understand the season and understand that, when you get in elite play, you can really get lost in preparing for the next game. You play 3 games in a week. You play 2 games a week. You have to have an off day. If you get lost in preparing for the next game, how does your team get better? Like, work on your team. And I think that's what he's doing. He's working on his team. And as I see this team, they're developing a greater trust. Roles are being defined. I see Derek Lively running the floor, rolling hard, playing in the dunker spot, getting to the offensive glass. Those things take time to get guys to buy in, especially when you got all these young, really talented players. So, I think, to win this game, they got to figure out how they're going to guard Armando. They got to do a good job in defensive transition and keep the ball out of the lane. They've got to go at Armando, I think, and make him defend, whether you put him in ball screens or you put him in post-ups and some of the ISOs that John runs for Filipowski. You got to be emotional, but you can't be overly emotional and this is for John and for Hubert. Like, this is the first time 2 former players that have skin in the game are coaching this game. So like both of those guys as players, there's an emotional attachment to this game. They understand what this game's all about. But as a head coach, you can be pushed to that emotion, but you can't be so emotionally invested that you lose track of what you need to do. And that's to lead, see the game through a prism of clear eyes, and stay in the moment. Because if you get too emotional, you don't stay in the moment. So for both coaches, I think it's going to be interesting how they adapt to it. Like these 2 guys that have skin in the game, they have sweat equity in this game. So I think for the coaches, they have to be there. I mean, and probably a little bit more on John because this is the first time sitting in that seat. But I think the biggest thing is Armando keeping the ball guards out of the lane, getting the shot you want, and being emotionally invested in the game, but not being overly emotional.
I agree with you about the continuity being not an excuse, but a mitigating factor. And yeah, thank you for that.
100%. This is one of the first times maybe a Duke blogger would agree with what I said. Coach beat you 8,000 times. You're an idiot. He beat everyone else 800,000 times too. I feel I got good company.